Hi everyone! From a mysterious face of an ancient civilization to some creepy remains and even an entire lost city, here are some of the most mysterious things discovered in the mountains. The face in the rock. In the Amazon rainforest, a colossal human face has been discovered etched into the side of a mountain. Nobody knows if the face was carved by nature or by human hands. It's deep in the jungle, far from any known civilization. It could be that the face was made thousands of years ago by an advanced society who reshaped the Amazon only to disappear. Although the mysterious face is far from major civilization, it is in the territory of a small Peruvian community. This is the homeland of the Harakbut tribe, the indigenous people of the jungle. Their descendants believe the face in the stone is the visage of a protective nature god. In fact, this entire part of the jungle is known as Madre de Dios, or Mother of God. Take a look at this stone face and let me know what you think in the comments. Is it carved in the likeness of a human face? Or is it a freak coincidence created through erosion and time? The face of Harakbut does appear to have eyes, eyebrows, a nose, a mouth, and a chin. He even has high cheekbones. It does seem likely that a civilization from time immemorial carved his features. The mysteries of Mount Unterberg. There is a mountain in Austria that has captured the attention of everyone from the Dalai Lama to Adolf Hitler. It's a mysterious place that almost definitely holds a fantastic power. Hitler believed he had a personal relationship with the mountain. He thought that it was the key to achieving supernatural power. In 1992, the Dalai Lama visited the mountain and called it the heart chakra of the world. It's called Mount Unterberg, and to this day nobody knows what makes it so special. In modern times, people have reportedly seen ghosts and strange creatures crawling along its flanks. It's allegedly home to lost civilizations and even the remnants of a culture of dwarfs like from Lord of the Rings. People have compared it to the Bermuda Triangle, claiming there are disappearances and unexplained happenings on the mountain. If you look through old German newspapers, you can find story after story involving Mount Unterberg. It appears frequently in German mythology as well, typically in stories that include magic and dwarves. You're going to need some specific examples of the mountain's weirdness. I'll start in the year 1738. A hunter by the name of Michael Halsugger disappeared without a trace. Exactly 1 year later, he was discovered wandering the area, confused and disoriented. When his friends and family asked where he had been, he refused to answer. It's been rumored that whatever power resides inside the mountain can cause time slips, manipulating the very fabric of time and space itself. In 1987, 3 people allegedly entered the cave system underneath the mountain to explore its unknown depths, but they never returned. Their car was found nearby with no sign of the explorers. 3 months later, they suddenly woke up on a ship in the Red Sea off the coast of Alexandria in Egypt. They had no idea how they had gotten there. The Prophecy. Baba Vanga was a famous Bulgarian mystic, a modern-day oracle. She would fall into a trance and give obscure predictions of the future, predictions that sometimes came true. As a blind woman, she made a name for herself as the greatest clairvoyant of the USSR. One of her predictions led a man on a journey that would change him forever. In January of 1981, a man visited Baba Vanga in her hometown of Rupit. He had with him an extremely old map that supposedly led to the location of a hidden treasure. He couldn't decipher the document but hoped the wise prophetess could. She said his map was fake and that he should leave it with her while he took a rest. While the man was resting, the old lady had her niece copy the map. Although it didn't lead to a treasure, the mystic claimed it contained very ancient writing from a group of people who left Egypt and arrived in Bulgaria by sea over 2,000 years ago. It was at this point that Baba Vanga fell into a trance. She claimed that a small mountain near the border of Turkey held a sarcophagus buried by the Egyptian seafarers who arrived in Eastern Europe. The sarcophagus contained ancestral knowledge that could change history. She said that a path on the mountain would lead to a clearing, and below a large rock would be the buried sarcophagus. The oracle's niece told a story to a man named Krastyu Motavchev. He organized an expedition to search for the mysterious place. But it was tough because the mountain described by Baba Vanga was on the border between Turkey and the USSR. It was heavily patrolled and totally off limits. Still, they went by moonlight and discovered the mountain. The adventurers did not find a treasure, they found something even better. As they searched for the rock that supposedly covered the sarcophagus, a pair of ghostly silhouettes appeared to them. The silhouettes were luminous, like glowing holograms. The phenomenon was seen by everyone on the expedition, and to this day it's never been explained. And neither has the sarcophagus ever been found. A popular rumor is that Baba Vanga had been granted a vision of the burial tomb of the Egyptian goddess Bastet. Today the site is known as the Cave of Bastet. Prehistoric Camping. 11,000 years ago, there was a culture of mountain people living in Wyoming. One of the state's most popular outdoor recreation areas today has been a popular recreation area since the Ice Age. The Wind River Range is one of the most breathtaking wildernesses in all of America. There are stunning vistas, sprawling grass meadows, and beautiful alpine scenery high up in the mountains at over 11,500 feet above sea level. It's a popular place for climbing, skiing, backpacking, and camping underneath the stars. But what a lot of campers don't realize is they're following in the steps of the ancients. Scientists recently discovered that Native Americans went on camping trips into the high alpine zones when woolly mammoths still roamed the lands. In 2006, archaeologist Dr. Richard Adams discovered a prehistoric settlement 11,000 feet up in the northern section of the mountains. He named it High Rise Village. This was a big deal because up until the discovery, nobody knew Native Americans ventured high into the mountains and built permanent settlements in this part of Wyoming. It was assumed they didn't have any need to ascend to such high elevations where there was less food and where it was colder. High Rise Village wasn't a small place. It had at least 75 houses and 4 times as many people. Archaeologists found tens of thousands of fragmented stone artifacts. These were all scattered across a slope so steep even the best skiers would have a tough time descending it. Why would people live at such an obtuse angle, especially when they had so many better options across the vast wilderness in Wyoming? Whoever lived here purposely built their village on an uncomfortable slope. People were living in High Rise Village until as recently as the 1700s. Within a roughly 3-mile radius in all directions, there are over 100 smaller archaeological sites. Richard Adams and his team even went on an epic mission to uncover more prehistoric villages across the Wind River Range. They were able to identify 13 full-size towns. Most of them were summer retreats. The indigenous people primarily came into the mountains in large numbers in the summer to camp, hunt, and enjoy life, just like people do today. But what in the world happened to all these people? There are nearly 20 prehistoric alpine villages across Wyoming's mountains that were occupied until 300 years ago. The indigenous groups lived in the mountains for almost 11,000 consecutive years, only to disappear when the first Europeans arrived in North America. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see what caused them to flee their ancestral homes. The pumpkin toadlet. An entirely new species of poisonous frog has been found in the mountains of Brazil. The frog is tiny, the exact same color as a ripe pumpkin, and it's deadly. Not to mention that when exposed to an ultraviolet light, it glows green like it's coated in radioactive gunk. The new species is called the tiny pumpkin toadlet. Pumpkin toadlets are not new to science. They are a known family of frogs containing some of the smallest amphibians in the world. A research team was trying to distinguish differences between populations of pumpkin toadlets when they incidentally found a new species. This was in the São Paulo province in the Atlantic forest of Brazil, high up in the southern Mantiqueira Mountains. They didn't stumble upon the frog on the first day of their investigation. It took 2 years of field studies for researchers to identify Brachycephalus rotenbergi. It's different from other pumpkin toadlets in that it has a rounded snout, dark spots on its head like banana bruises, and a unique song. Yes, frogs have unique songs that they sing. It's how they communicate. They can also communicate through the color of their skin, which scientists think could have something to do with the frog's tendency to glow neon green. But in all honesty, they have no real proof of why the frog glows. It's a really weird thing to find out, and makes you wonder what other animals glow when exposed to different lights. As for how poisonous it is, you can touch the frog with your bare hand, but if you touch your eyes or mouth afterwards, you're going to get some tetrodotoxin in your system. If the name of that toxin sounds familiar, it should. Tetrodotoxin is one of the worst poisons in the world, the same poison found in the famous fugu fish. Pumpkin toadlets secrete it through their skin. A small bit of the toxin on your flesh won't kill you, but you definitely don't want to eat this small Brazilian frog. The body in the hills. In 2023, the unthinkable happened to a man named Charlie Kelly who vanished while hiking in Glen Etive. At 56 years old, Charlie left his family, his 3 sons, and went to hike the Scottish Highlands. Unfortunately, it would be the last adventure of Charlie's life. Glen Etive is one of the most epic landscapes in all of Britain. Its peaks rise high against a pale blue sky, dusted lightly with snow. The rivers move peacefully through the vast moors, while red deer graze on an endless supply of grass. The scenic beauty of Glen Etive makes it an extremely popular place for hikers and adventurers. But the area is so vast, seemingly endless, that it's not difficult to become lost. On September 6th, Mr. Kelly left his home to travel into the Highlands. He was in touch with his family the next day, then nobody heard from him. When he was reported missing, search teams descended into the fog of the glen to scour the mountainsides in search of clues. It was a massive effort, with members of 10 different mountain rescue teams searching the rough terrain. They had dogs and helicopters, but it was ultimately drones that would find Charlie. On October 24th, more than a month after he disappeared, Charlie's body was spotted by a drone less than 200 feet from where a search team had already looked. It's unclear exactly what happened to Charlie, but it appears he may have fallen into a ravine and gotten stuck. On a less tragic note, Glen Etive also happens to be the home of a terrifying Scottish folk monster. The legendary Fachan is said to live in the Misty Mountains. The Fachan is a monstrosity with a single eye in the center of its face, like a cyclops. It's roughly the size of a giant, 12 or 13 feet tall, but it only has one leg to balance on, with the leg sprouting from the bottom of its torso. Rather than having arms, the Fachan only has a single hand protruding from the center of its chest. Nobody's ever seen this thing in real life, but it's been a part of Scottish lore for years. The Berwin Mountain Incident. On January 23, 1974, one of the most incredible UFO sightings in the history of humanity took place. Or did it? The sightings happened in the Berwin Mountains of Wales. Residents of the mountains reported hearing a loud noise, then suddenly seeing a bright light in the sky. In the days following the shared sighting, it was claimed the British government covered up the crash of an alien spaceship. While not many people in America know about the incident, it's hugely famous in the UK. It's the Welsh version of the Roswell incident of 1947. Local newspapers even called it the Roswelsh incident. Let me start with the facts so that you and I can get to the bottom of this unbelievable phenomenon. The truth is that the people of the Berwin Mountains did hear a noise and they did see a light. There is no debating it. This was a massive sighting reported by hundreds of people. So what was it? It's easy to jump to the conclusion of an alien crash landing. But what are the other scientific explanations? Scientists claimed the noise was caused by an earthquake, and the intense light was generated by a very bright meteor. It was a perfect storm, with the earthquake creating a noise like a shockwave at the exact same moment a meteor burned in the sky like a flaming spaceship. It's entirely possible. In 2010, sealed government files were released of the 1974 Welsh Roswell incident. The incident file showed that the Royal Air Force Valley on Anglesey was scrambled to search for a potential crash on the mountainside. They didn't find anything, though. Later reports of a fireball being spotted in the sky came in from Somerset, Manchester, and Edinburgh. The fireball disintegrated above Manchester, descending from the atmosphere to just shy of about 10 miles above the surface before it was gone in a blinding flash. The government report also showed that an earth tremor rocked the Berwin Mountains at approximately 8:32 that evening. The earthquake produced a landslide, which would have sounded much like an explosion. The greatest mass UFO sighting in Welsh history was, if scientists and the government are to be believed, no more than 2 natural occurrences happening simultaneously. The line in the ruins. In Colorado, a mountain lion has been spotted prowling ancient ruins. Photos were recently shared by the Mesa Verde National Park showing the unauthorized tourist prowling the empty halls and forgotten streets of the Mesa Verde cliff dwellings. Even though the mysterious civilization is gone, the wildlife has never stopped coming to this mystical place. Using a discreet trail cam, Kay Barnett was able to capture much more than just a curious mountain lion on the prowl. She also caught images of birds, one bobcat, and the incredibly rare ringtail, also known as the miner's cat. The ringtail is part of the raccoon family, closely related to the coati, but they're almost never seen, making them almost mythical creatures in Colorado. It's pretty remarkable that one of these legendary animals was spotted in one of America's most mystifying mountain ruins. The cliff dwellings are in the Colorado desert, carved into the sides of steep cliffs by the ancestral Puebloan people over 700 years ago. This mysterious group arrived in Colorado around 550 AD, building their cliff dwellings near seep springs for easy access to fresh water. Throughout their 7 centuries of prospering, they built a lot more than cliff houses. The issue is that a lot of their history has been destroyed by time itself. Researchers believe there are at least 5,000 archaeological sites inside the park boundaries, with countless more beyond. The mystery of the ancestral Puebloans is that nobody knows what happened to them. They abandoned their cities and cliff dwellings around 1300 AD, long before the arrival of Europeans. Nobody knows where they went or what caused their civilization to flee. Now, because the abandoned dwellings are near springs, beasts of the wild come looking for a refreshing drink and a reprieve from the heat. Ancient Inca City. 13,000 feet above sea level in the Peruvian Andes, laser technology has revealed an ancient city even older than Machu Picchu. Albert Lin, an explorer with National Geographic, used the newest in light detection and ranging technology to uncover the extent of the city. The mysterious city is inside an archaeological zone called Huata, 5,000 feet higher than Machu Picchu. For anyone who's been to Peru's most famous tourist attraction, just imagine visiting a ruin that's even higher. The trek to reach Machu Picchu is epic enough without adding 5,000 extra feet straight up to the journey. Lin, who's a seasoned explorer, said it was a challenge even for him to get there. The higher you have to climb in the Andes, the less shade you have to protect yourself against a fiercely burning sun. You would think it would be colder as you get higher, but the sun only becomes more brutal. The trip is worth the effort though. At 13,000 feet, you're reaching the tallest peaks in the Andes. The landscape here is unlike any other place on Earth. You have great grasslands spread across plateaus and peaks. Then there are the valleys way down below, so deep they are in a totally different ecosystem. It's shocking to think an ancient civilization came all the way up here to build tombs, plazas, and fully functioning cities. But they did. Using lasers allowed the explorers to see underneath the thick shrubs and cacti that cover the mountain tops. Lasers picked up features of the lost city that would not have been found otherwise. The data collected revealed what researchers are calling the template for Machu Picchu. What I'm trying to say is that the city was built hundreds of years prior to Machu Picchu in the 15th century, but Machu Picchu couldn't have come without it. What a lot of people don't realize is that the Inca built Machu Picchu on the ruins of a much more ancient city. Just like how the Spanish built their Christian churches on the ruins of Aztec temples, the Inca built their mountain cities over the ruins of the cultures they conquered. The Sun Altar. In County Kerry, on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean in Ireland, a local man stumbled across a prehistoric hilltop tomb that was lost for the last 180 years. Our unlikely archaeologist is Billy Maglowan. Billy fancies himself quite the folklorist. He is somewhat of an obsession with old literature and the legends of Ireland. It was during his research into local lore that he came across a tomb that had been recorded in 1838. An English aristocrat and seasoned traveller named Lady Chatterton drew a sketch of the tomb, which she published in her guidebook. Lady Chatterton was basically a 19th century travel blogger. Her guidebook to the mysterious lands of Ireland was called Rambles in the South of Ireland during the year 1838. It doesn't get much more precise than that. In her travelogue, she described the hilltop tomb as a curious piece of antiquity. She wrote that an altar at the site was likely used for offering sacrifices to the sun or to a sun god. She also complained about the endless rain that drenched her and her party. Another curious visitor journeyed to the site of the tomb in 1852, but this next visitor was in for some serious disappointment. He wrote in his records that there were no remains of the tomb to be found. Between 1838 and 1852, somebody dismantled the tomb and carried away the stones. This was likely someone building a house who needed construction material. Now let's turn back to our friend Billy. He came across these records and knew he needed to rediscover the tomb in the modern era. He was exploring the hill of Cruach Marthain when he came across a number of unusual stones. Sure enough, the stones were all that remained of the original tomb. While most of its building blocks were carried away, a few of them were left on the grassy hill. Unfortunately, there's no information about who was buried in the megalithic tomb. Scientists only know it was built around 2500 BC, making it one of the last prehistoric tombs made in Ireland. The Devil's Den. In Ashland, Massachusetts, there is a mysterious cave at the top of a hill where the devil used to hide. It's called the Devil's Den, and it used to strike fear into the hearts of colonial settlers. Nowadays, it's a lot less spooky. The cave is behind a local football field and is used by teenagers who are up to no good. The Devil's Den was first discovered by Puritan settlers in New England. If you know anything about Puritans, you'll know they have a healthy fear of the devil. When they arrived in the New World, they saw the devil in everything. The wilderness was dark and strange to the settlers, and they saw evil in the shadows and corners of the new and unfamiliar world. The creepy cavern freaked them out simply because it was dark and spooky. In modern times, archaeological investigations have revealed no evidence of a devil or demon living inside the dark crevice. But there is evidence that Native Americans used the cave. About a decade ago, the local high school wanted to destroy the cave to make more room for their athletic fields. It took a lot of arguing on behalf of the local historical society, but they did manage to preserve the cave for future generations. The hikers of the Matterhorn. 37 years ago, a German hiker disappeared while climbing in the Swiss Alps. Nobody knew what became of the hiker all these years until a ghoulish discovery was made in July of 2023. The missing hiker's remains were uncovered on a glacier near Switzerland's Matterhorn mountain. A group of hikers were climbing the Toadlet glacier in Zermatt when they found the missing German man's body. The police haven't given any information about the circumstances surrounding his death, though it's safe to make some assumptions based on the situation. He vanished in 1986 and was buried under the snow and ice. Even without knowing the exact cause of death, it's safe to say his final moments were not pleasant. Now, as the Alps face unprecedented melt from hot weather, the glacier retreated and the man's partially preserved body appeared. The climber's remains were excavated and sent to a nearby hospital. There, experts linked the bones to the disappearance. This isn't the only recent discovery of a corpse near the Matterhorn. In 1970, a pair of Japanese climbers vanished on the Matterhorn during a snowstorm. It was believed they had gotten disoriented and literally buried underneath the blizzard. In 2015, the remains of the climbers were found due to the rapidly melting snow. Their bodies were pulled from the mountain, and DNA testing connected them to their living relatives. 2 years prior, in 2013, Jonathan Conville's body was discovered. Jonathan was a British mountaineer who attempted to climb the Matterhorn in 1979. Nobody knows exactly what happened to him, but it's believed he fell to his death. His body was so effectively buried under the snow that it wasn't discovered until 10 years ago. Going back even further, the ghoulish remains of Duncan McPherson were found in 2003. Duncan was a first-round NHL draft pick for the New York Islanders, originally from Saskatoon. He vanished in the Austrian Alps in 1989 at the young age of only 23. Yukon's Tombstone Park. A mysterious object was recently found in Tombstone Territorial Park. Nobody knows if it's a satellite battery, a piece of lost machinery, or debris from an alien wreck. Tombstone Park is in the gorgeous wilderness of the Yukon, not far from Dawson City. It was a resident of Dawson City, David Boudouin, who uncovered the mysterious object while hiking in the remote park. It's fairly common to find discarded tools here due to the gold rush that brought people from across North America north in search of riches. But in this case, the object doesn't make a ton of sense. According to David, he was already nearly 5 miles into his hike when he found the thing. He had gone off the trail and bushwhacked, then climbed to the top of a mountain. The view he had from the top of the mountain was majestic, something not many people ever get the privilege of experiencing. And there on the mountain top was the weird-looking battery. There are no trails to reach this spot. It doesn't look like any vehicle has ever disturbed the soil of this isolated mountain. Yet here was an unusual device, as if it had fallen from the sky. David suspects he may have stumbled upon a piece of the alleged balloon that was shot down over the Yukon by fighter jets in February 2023. The truth may never be known. David left the object where he found it, and nobody's identified it yet. Maybe it was a flux capacitor or a piece of the warp drive engine. What do you think could have brought a battery-like device to the top of a mountain in the Yukon? Let me know in the comments. Ruins on the mountaintop. In Mexico, strange ruins were recently found at the very top of a mountain. Carved stone monuments made 1,500 years ago were identified at the peak of Cerro de Pena in Puebla State, towering above the countryside at a height of 6,000 feet above sea level. But just who carved the unusual monuments, and what were they for? It wasn't a team of scientists who found the amazing ruins, but rather a group of villagers. The site, when it was still in use, boasted 7 pyramids and a games court. Researchers believe it was probably built by the Zapotec civilization, who were totally different from the Aztec and the Maya. The Zapotec lived in the southern highlands, developing a unique culture and magnificent traditions. This particular site has been lost since the 6th century AD. Nobody ever found it because the Zapotec built the site at the top of the mountain in a place nobody bothered to check. The only way to reach the site is by climbing for hours up a treacherous slope. Because the mountain isn't a very popular tourist destination, nor is there much in the way of civilization nearby, it was left alone for 15 centuries. So far, researchers have identified 2 etched stone panels known as stelae and some smaller carved stones strewn across the mountain slope. One of the carvings is of a powerful figure with horns and claws looking like a demon. Another carving is of a female figure with bat wings. These 2 characters were probably deities in the Zapotec religion, but archaeologists don't know which ones. The other figures on the smaller carved stones are animals like iguanas and eagles. The carved monuments are the big story because they are extremely impressive. The stelae are in awesome shape for being so old, but the monuments are only part of the story. Archaeologists have also identified a ceremonial area, multiple temples and luxurious homes that would have housed local rulers. All of this at the top of the mountain, partially shrouded in centuries of growth. There's even a ball court that was used to play pelota, a brutal game in which players had to bounce a rubber ball into a stone hoop using their hips. Iron Age Geoglyph. In Telangana, India, a large circle was discovered on the top of a mountain. It looks pretty dull, even in pictures. It's literally just a circle on the stony surface of a mountaintop. But according to the experts, the circle is a geoglyph and it's 3,000 years old. It's perfectly circular in shape, and nobody knows what the purpose of it is. The single geoglyph was made by an unknown group of people living in India during the Iron Age. There are no clues as to what the circle was for or why the tribal people went through the trouble of making it. Professor Ravi Koraseta, an expert in prehistoric rock art, said the circle could have been part of a blueprint. People might have created it as a way to help plan the construction of a circular burial site. Less than a mile from the geoglyph, archaeologists also found a trio of prehistoric rock shelters. Inside the rock shelters were images of bulls, porcupines, and unusual humanoids. The area appears to be part of an ancient ritual landscape. The caves of the Himalayas. One of the greatest archaeological mysteries of our time is in the Himalayas. In the world's greatest mountains, archaeologists from Nepal and Germany started exploring a series of caves in the 1990s. 30 years later, 10,000 caves have been found in the Himalayan mountains. These caves were dug by hand into the sides of cliffs, but nobody knows who built them or what their original purpose was. During the initial investigations, archaeologists were pulling body after body out of the caves. These were the preserved corpses of people who were put into these small caverns over 2,000 years ago. You might be thinking that obviously the caves were used as tombs, but that isn't the case. Keep in mind there are over 10,000 of them, and each one is a little different. Some were obviously used as sleeping spaces. Some appear to have been filled with garbage. Archaeologists have found the remains of hearths, grains, storage bins, and Buddhist murals. Some of the caves even contained old Buddhist manuscripts. There must have been monks here at some point, but the truth of the Himalayan sky caves is far more complicated. The oldest caves date to roughly 1000 BC, making them 3000 years old. Although I call them caves, they are more like niches dug into the cliffs of the mountains. They are mostly shallow burrows, like little cubbyholes. Archaeologists have so many theories, but they can't decide on which one is correct. Maybe the caves were used as meditation chambers by monks. Then again, maybe they were used as military lookouts or as individual storage units. The most likely answer is all of the above. Over the centuries, people probably used the caves in various ways. They were likely abandoned by the most recent group to call the caves home about 600 years ago. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and come back soon for more awesome videos.